I think we can all agree that you shouldn't need a six-figure salary to play Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2025. Today I'm going to show you an undefeated Yu-Gi-Oh! Genesis list that costs under $30 and how you can transform that deck into a competitive, tournament-ready TCG build. Stick around to the end so you can see how to do the swaps and the why behind this strategy, as well as an exclusive giveaway. No BS, let's hop into it. Alright my friends, I mean it when I say it that this is one of the most effective ways to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively in 2025 on a budget. Now this Monarch deck profile is going to be the bulk of our video, but be sure to stick around at the tail end so you can see how to swap this undefeated Genesis list into a competitive tournament-ready TCG deck list as well for only like maybe $2 or $3. And the main selling point of this strategy is that the whole thing is going to run you under $30. So I'm going to dive into the list, I'm going to run through some of the choices and why this is such a competitive, effective strategy in Genesis and the TCG. So without further ado, let's dive in. Alright guys, starting things off with the main deck monsters. In any Monarch strategy, you're going to be playing a ton of your big boss tribute summons. And chief among them is the mighty Erebus, a mandatory 3 of. He's great going first or going second. For recursion, he is probably the most powerful boss monster that your deck has access to. On turn 0, you're going to use it to rip cards out of your opponent's hand, and when you're going second, you can use it to clear out the opponent's board and graveyard with non-targeting shufflebacks. And at the same time, you're dumping 2 Monarch spells and traps, going to line up your Pantheism, your Master Plan, your Prime. It's a mandatory must-have at 3. And don't forget, you can pitch Monarch spells and traps from your hand to the grave to either add back himself or any other Monarch stat monster from the grave to the hand. Moving on from there, I'm playing 2 copies of Ether in the main deck. This is a mainstay disruption on the opponent's turn. It's how you get to do the tribute summon. You're tributing their monsters to summon your guy, then you're summoning another monster from your deck that may very well be giving you a search and guaranteed follow-up to crush your opponent. However, I find playing this at 2 is quite effective. You can search it when you need it. It's strong to open, but I much rather open Erebus going first or going second. So I find 2 is the right way to go. Mandatory 3, we got triple copies of Big Eidos. Big Eidos, you gotta play 3 of this guy. He's probably the most expensive card out of the entire main engine, being maybe $3 or $4 a copy. But that's because he is so strong. He's adding back from grave or from deck to hand when he is normal or special summoned. And he can special summon himself from the graveyard whenever you do a tribute summon. You're gonna be revealing him off Revolt all of the time or pitching him from hand. And he truly is one of the missing links that makes this deck go from good to great in 2025. Next, I'm main decking 1 copy of the OG Caius. Why, you may ask? Well, there are some unique interactions you can do with the Master Plan spell card and the Prime Monarch trap card, and Dark is the most common attribute to go after, and he is the most powerful and generic of the original Monarch crew. So I do main deck the 1 Caius, but I do want to throw out a quick little reminder here. When you're going into a board, you can use Big Eidos' effect to change your opponent's attributes, so you can do your Master Plan plus Prime play and put up a Caius that's going to be removing a card from the field. Moving on to the Squires, we got triple copies of the brand new one, the Tessera, brand new out of the latest core set, I think, or the one before that, whatever. Either way, this is one of the best cards in the main deck. It can summon itself from hand for free, it gives you an additional tribute summon, and it also special summons Squires out from your deck when it is sent to the graveyard. Whether it's tributed off or discarded from your hand, you're going to be able to proc its effect. This is yet another core component of what makes this deck good nowadays. And then for the old school Squires, we play 2 copies of Adia and 2 copies of Eidos. Back in the day, it was pretty common to start off your turn by normal summoning Adia, special Eidos, and lining up your tribute summon that way. But now, you're more oftentimes than not going to be summoning the Adia off of the Tessera effect when it hits the grave. And that way you're lining up the maximum amount of tribute summons on your own turn as possible. Eidos' bonus effect to summon from grave nowadays also is less often going for the Adia, more oftentimes going for the Tessera, especially if you sent it off of your Revolt or discarded it from hand to grave. But either way, this is the correct ratio to play on the Squires. Finally, we play 1 honorary Squire in this Genesis list, that being the Steel Stringed Sacrifice. This has the Squire stats. It's a free special, it's a free add back from grave, and it can also recur some of your boss monarchs from the graveyard back to your hand. So it was a quite good choice for this build. Moving on from there, triple copies of the Pantheism in the spell card department. This is your draw 3 and your generic search. Banish from grave, reveal 3. Opponent chooses 1 to add to your hand. Also play triple copies of Tenacity for maximized consistency. This becomes whatever you need it to be just by revealing a Monarch in your hand to do so. Triple copies of Stormforth, the big, powerful blowout. Tribute your opponent's monsters as if they were your own. Problem being, this does affect the monster, so something that is unaffected like that Lunalight or that Ultimate Falcon, you can't Stormforth over that guy. But still, this card is cracked. Definitely play it as a 3 of in the main. Same thing goes for Mr. Revolt, the brand new pseudo-pantheism card for Monarchs instead of spells and traps. Pitch one from hand, reveal 3 Monarchs from the deck. Opponent's going to pick one to add to your hand, the other 2 go to grave. That makes this one even better because it's going to trigger things like your Tessera, or it's going to set up your Eidos for your next play. And then we got triple copies of the Master Plan as well. Master Plan is your free Foolish Burial Goods in archetypal. And it's even better than that card because its send effect is not once per turn, and when you banish it from the graveyard with your prime, that is what gives you that extra tribute summon either during your turn or your opponent's to bring out an OG Monarch, and we're using it alongside our Caius. Again, this is a Genesis list, so we got some one-ofs. I'm going to do 1 return of the Monarch. This searches off any Monarch stat monster when you do a tribute summon successfully. It's a great way to line up those extra Erebus summons or set up your Ether play into the opponent's turn. And then since this is Genesis, this is 50 hot points right here. 1 copy of the Domain, and this is our main win con. Lock the opponent out of the extra deck. 50-point cost, doesn't matter. Don't forget about the bonus effect, boosting your guys when they attack by 800 attack points. It lets you clear over some of the biggest, most problematic boss monsters, while simultaneously, once again, being your win con. And you can easily recycle this card. If it ends up in the graveyard, you can add it back with Eidos. If it ends up banished, you can add it back with Adia. Plenty of ways to get to this guy even after it's removed, or even if you're under Droll. So this is the main part of our point allocation. The rest of our points are going to consistency cards in the form of Graceful Charity, triple copies of the Upstart Goblin. So that's going to be another 40, 3 a pop here, and then this is 50. So that's a grand total of 99 points if my brain isn't malfunctioning. This is our entire point allocation for Yu-Gi-Oh! Genesis. This is also where we're going to see the biggest changes when we swap this over to the TCG list, is over here. For obvious reasons, right? Like, this card hasn't been legal for a very long time, but in Genesis we can take advantage of it, and this is my favorite consistency card over something like a Pot of Greed because that discard is so helpful. We're going 3 extra cards in instead of just 2, and it's lining up things like your Eidos, like your Adia, or your Tessera. I'll also put in the asterisk though, if you did want to play with the points, you got 9 free ones to work around with here with those upstarts. You could swap those in for 2 Drolls, maybe in the sideboard, or whatever you see fit. But generically speaking, I think you get common upstarts for 50 cents to $1 a pop. This isn't hurting our bottom dollar that much. Finally, I'll close things out with the trap cards. I got 1 copy of the Prime Monarch. If you don't know this card, released back in the 2016 structure deck, it's a free summon from the grave by banishing any Monarch spell and trap, bring it out onto the field, and it's free fodder for your tribute summons. What's on the field, you can use it as kind of a crummy Pot of Avarice, shuffling back your spells and traps, getting free draws. Seldom does that ever come up. You're almost always dumping this into the graveyard. Even if it's in your hand, you're much rather discard it than set it. And the last card in the main board is 1 copy of the Monarch's Perfection. Now guys, just give this card a full read when you have a chance. I'm going to give you the super quick synopsis here. This is one of your best forms of interruption that costs you 0 points. If you control a tribute summon monster and you got Monarch spells and traps in your grave, once per chain, it's going to trigger off one of the original Monarch effects without targeting. So we can take cards on the field and banish them if we're using Caius. We can destroy cards. We can take cards from the field and put them on top of the deck. It's phenomenal. It's one of the best forms of interruption that this deck can play with an absolutely 0 point cost. So an ideal end board universe usually looks like having a tribute summon on your field with your Perfection and your Domain set up, maybe even after ripping 1 to 2 to 3 cards out of your opponent's hand, depending on how much interruption you had to play through. Starting things off with the side deck, which we will be transforming as well, but first and foremost, we got triple copies of the GeneSys in Genesis against any trap matchup, whether it be Apophis or anything else. We've got the most broken form of interruption, a floodgate monster that is not a hit at all, that being the mighty GeneSys. Just auto-win those matchups. Pivot from going for Domain into going for GeneSys. It's that simple. It may be unsearchable 3 of, but when you see it, it feels great. You got a ton of consistency cards to dig you into it, and it's going to almost auto-win you those matchups. And don't forget, he's a tribute summon monster, meaning he's going to proc off a lot of your things. It is going to make your Domain live if it is relevant for the matchup, so keep all those things in mind. This is one of the most pivotal plays that you can have for those certain matchups. Moving on, though, we've got 2 copies of the Land Robe. This is an in-archetypal going second Squire. I think that's the best way I can describe it. When it's in your hand, you can use it to try and Book of Moon one of your opponent's monsters, summon it onto the field, and then boom, you get yourself a free tribute summon lined up just like that. It is Squire stats, making it searchable. And this one, I got to give a huge shout out to the guy who ended up winning TCG regionals relatively recently with Monarchs. That was part of the inspiration for this video. Yes, you can play Monarchs competitively in both Genesis and the TCG in 2025, and the best thing about the deck is it's not going to cost you anything more than $30 to put together a competitive build. This one I'm also going to flag as a little bit optional though. I think it did get a little bit on buyout status, so it might be like $2 or $3 a copy instead of like the 50 cents that it should be. But inevitably, it's also a target for a reprint in an upcoming OTS set. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it happen. Moving on though, we got one copy of the Caius Thestalos combo. This is Thestalos, the Shadow Flare Monarch. Yeah, again, the best way I can describe it is a fusion between Caius and Thestalos. This one is awesome for going first or going second. It's ripping another card of the opponent's hand, but the fact that it has Monarch Stormforth built into its effect. So if you have a Tribute Summon monster on your field already, you can tribute it and one of your opponent's monsters as if you controlled it to summon this guy. So very broken card, especially good going second. Speaking of going second though, if you really want to win those matchups, easy mode, triple copies of the spell card Soul Exchange. This does work on the unaffected monsters. Unlike the Stormforth, this one does let you sack over them as if you controlled them. This is a phenomenal board breaker. You bring this in almost every single game when you know you're going second and your opponent is building a board that isn't exclusively set back row. Bring this one in all the time, and you'll be surprised to see how many matchups it's going to win for you. Moving on from there, since this is still Genesis, there's so many spell and trap reliant builds, we gotta bring in the Twin Twisters. Again, the discard cost is not too problematic for us. There's plenty of good things that we want to chuck from hand to grave that we can either easily bring back or generate advantage off of. And this is one of our most high impact spell and trap removal cards. Finally, last but not least, gotta shout out my boy Chris for sliding these over my way. We got 2 copies of the Strike of the Monarch. This is a cool form of going first or going second. You can use to generically negate face-up cards that the opponent controls by tributing a Tribute Summon monster, and plus you also get a draw off of this as well to make up for its relatively hefty costs. So it may be costly, but this is one of the best in-archetypal ways that we have of either backing up our existing game plan. In Genesis, it's especially important for negating things like our opponent's Twin Twisters when they're going after our domain or our perfection. We can be sure to set this up alongside our main end board pieces to protect them from the things that would otherwise beat us. And then the last card in the sideboard is another in-archetypal support card. That's the Frost Blast. Once again, good for spell and trap matchups. The cool thing about this one is you can dump it from deck to grave off of your Erebus or your Ether, and then you can use it to blow up set cards. So very, very strong. So that is the undefeated Genesis list, but let me show you how you can turn this Genesis deck into a modern ready TCG build for only a couple dollars. Let's do it. All right, everyone, before I show you how to transform this undefeated tournament-ready meta Genesis deck list into a tournament-ready TCG deck list, I want to let you guys know that I am doing a little bit of a giveaway in this video right now. So if you are subscribed to the channel, leave a like on this video and leave any comment down below. You're going to be entered in to win a little bit of a Monarchs starter kit. These are just extra cards that I had. I'm a huge fan of this deck and this build, and I really want to make this build available to more people because I want you all to realize that it can be so easy and so cheap to play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now if you know the right choices and how to play them. So that's what I'm kind of trying to do with this deck list. I'm trying to put the tools in your hands, and there will be download links in the description down below for these lists as well, so you can give them a try and start practicing. Whether you want to play in modern TCG or in Yu-Gi-Oh! Genesis format, this exists for you. So if you want to enter in to win all of these extra Monarch cards that I have, just leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and any comment down below, I'll respond to the winner in a little bit. So all you need to do to transform your tournament-ready Genesis deck list into a competitive TCG build is take 6 cards from your main deck and 6 cards from your side deck and swap them out with these choices that I'm about to show you. So from the main board, what comes out is your copy of Graceful Charity for obvious reasons, given the fact that it's banned, all 3 Upstart Goblins, a Return of the Monarchs, and your Steel String Sacrifice. You're going to swap these guys out, 6 cards from the main, and you're going to slide on in 1 copy of the Majesty's Fiend, 2 copies of the Vanity's Fiend. This is a ratio borrowed from the regional winning Monarch deck list that you guys might have seen floating around. These cards are super strong, powerful floodgate monsters that aren't legal in Genesis format. Or, I mean, they are, but they're 100 points a copy. So you're not going to be playing them in any real competitive Genesis build. But in the TCG, power creep has moved well beyond these guys to the point where there's enough answers to let them stay and run rampant. The good thing for us, though, is that we can do it better than almost any other strategy. So they are among some of our most important win conditions that keep all of our forms of interruption live while keeping our opponent locked down under a powerful floodgate effect. The next thing we're going to slide on into our main deck is 1 copy of the Thestalos, the Mega Monarch. The cool thing about this guy is that he does almost the same thing as Erebus in terms of ripping a card from your opponent's hand, but he lets us sneak a peek. And the reason why that's so important is because when you use this as one of your earlier tribute summons, It can inform how you build your end board. If you're playing against a matchup where Domain of the Monarchs isn't necessarily going to be the most effective interruption, that's fine. Pivot over to a perfection play, or just try and rip as many cards as possible. The knowledge that this card awards you is so important and so potent that it's a must play in any Monarch TCG build. Last but not least, we've got 2 copies of Domain of the Monarchs. Since it is 50 points in Genesis, we can only play 1, but in the TCG, you best believe we're bringing in those 2 extra copies in case one gets removed, or just for the fact that it's a pretty strong card to open. If we open up with this, that's 1 additional search that we can spend on something like a return or a perfection for our end board. In the sideboard, we are unfortunately going to be taking out the Jinzos. There's just not enough meta-relevant trap decks to rationalize spending 3 side deck slots on it, and the 3 copies of the Twin Twisters in favor of bringing in some more slightly meta-relevant cards. Droll and Lockbird we're bringing in as a 3 of, because good news, there's no point allocation to it, and it is among the most impactful budget hand traps that we can play and max out in our sideboard. And then I follow that one up with 3 copies of the Dark Ruler No More, just because throwing an interruption like this into any one of our opponent's end boards can either turn off everything that they've got, or force out another impactful interruption, clearing the way for us to use a Stormforth or Erebus to get rid of everything else. So guys, it truly is as simple as making the 6 card swaps in your main board and in your side deck to transform your tournament-ready Genesis build into something that's ready to dominate a TCG tournament. Okay, my friends, as promised, I'm going to break down the why behind this strategy. And to me, it comes down to 3 simple things. Number 1 being the affordability. Like I've said earlier, you can put this whole thing together for roughly $30. And that is a lot of bang for your buck in terms of not having 1 but 2 competitive TCG strategies that you can play in an advanced tournament or a Genesis format tournament. Number 2, we've got the power level. I really can't sleep on how surprisingly strong this deck can be in both Genesis and the TCG. In Genesis, you have one of the most powerful, legal, and accessible floodgate effects in the form of your Domain, and that beautiful backup plan with that Perfection Trap card. That's going to make it very difficult for any opponent to break your board. And when you're going second, Erebus is one of the most powerful boss monsters that you have for stripping apart your opponent's field and setting up a clear pathway to go for game. And when you slide on in your TCG cards, the ceiling goes even higher with some extremely overpowered floodgate monsters like your Majesties and your Vanity's Fiend, and even more access to your Domain. The last thing I want to mention on this note is the fact that the deck just got brand new support. And that support helps it keep pace with some of the other meta decks that have come out as of late. Because I think it's pretty obvious to most people who've been playing this game for a while now, the power level has risen immensely. So when you have new support that helps you keep pace with the current power level, that gives you your very own meta contender. Finally, we've got number 3, that being the shock factor. Fortunately enough, not a lot of people are playing Monarchs in 2025, meaning that side decks are unprepared, and you're going to be able to snag a fair deal of wins just off of your opponent's unpreparedness for the matchup. Last thing I'm going to say is that as a bit more of a casual player now in the competitive scene, having to keep up with all of the new cards and all of the new engines is a pretty daunting task. The cool thing about a deck like this is that you can keep it in your bag 24/7 and be ready for almost anything, and still have a serious shot of winning, because your power level of the deck itself is up there with all the other meta contenders, and not a lot of people are ready to play against you. That, combined with this being a really, really cheap deck, makes me believe that this is one of the best ways for you to play Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2025 when you're balling on a budget. I have a strong feeling that most of us, including myself, are adults now, so we've got a lot of other things to pay for beyond just shiny cardboard. So if you really want to play this game competitively in 2025, why don't you give Monarchs a try? And I'll close out by giving a huge shout out and thank you to my boy TK for helping put this list together. With all that being said, Logan JYA signing off. Have a great day, and I'll see you beautiful people later. Peace.